Flux, once celebrated as a pioneering water treatment and environmental solutions company in Singapore, became a cautionary tale of how failure to adapt, innovate, and invest in leadership can lead to downfall. Founded in 1989, Hyflux quickly rose to prominence, known for its innovative water desalination and treatment projects. However, by 2021, the company faced liquidation. Hyflux's lack of leadership foresight, inability to adapt to market shifts, and foster a resilient workforce led to its downfall. Hyflux heavily relied on its early technological success but failed to keep pace with advancements in green technologies, sustainable trends, and workplace evolution. This is sad, but unfortunately true for many legacy organizations today. Hello, everyone. This is Rajiv Jayaraman, founder CEO of KNOLSKAPE, and I welcome all of you to another episode of the Learning Curve powered by KNOLSKAPE. And today I have someone who understands the Singapore and the entire APAC market and work cultures really well. Effin Jamaluddin, Executive Director, Head of People and Organizational Development at Singlife. Effin is a seasoned HR leader and a board registered organizational psychologist with a proven track record of driving organizational productivity and enhancing people performance. With extensive experience across APAC and EMEA, he has worked with multinational corporations, startups, and government agencies, bringing a wealth of expertise and a global perspective to his roles. Passionate about leveraging technology to enhance learning and development, FN balances innovation with a commitment to creating inclusive and human centric workplaces. A Singapore citizen and an Australian PR, he brings cultural fluency and strategic insight to his work in diverse, dynamic environments. Hi, FN. Welcome to the Learning Curve.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, sir.
Great. Before we get started, I have a quick rapid fire section for you. Are you ready?
All right, so yes, I am Majay.
Awesome. A professional milestone you are most proud of.
Professional milestone I'm most proud of. It's actually making that transition from doing clinical psychology work into the corporate world, right? I used to be a prison psychologist a lifetime ago, right? And I used to work mainly with the adult violence population. So I used to work with murderers, gang members, sexual offenders, right? And thinking I've worked with the most challenging, the toughest of the toughest, I thought, hey, no, maybe how hard could it be, right? Making that jump from working with violent offenders, inmates, to working with corporate people. But I mean, we fast forward more than 12 years later, and I realized that, well, it is still a lot harder working with corporate
Wow.
people than
That's saying a
working with
lot.
inmates. Yeah,
Wow.
that's it.
I'm going to, pick on this thread a little later. It's so fascinating that the change that you've made and would love to
Yeah.
understand the differences between the two environments and similarities as well. End of the day, I do believe we all live in our own prisons in our minds. So,
No,
right. So we are all
but
prisoners from that perspective.
but I think what's interesting is a lot of my colleagues say, are you crazy, right? You know, in Singapore, they used to say the government is a very stable place to be working for. They used to call it the iron rice bowl. And making the jump to corporate, there's a lot of uncertainty. You know, market forces determine uh, commerce, right? You never know when there's gonna be the market's gonna be down, economy's not gonna be good. So for me, the proud is to your question, the proudest moment that I've had was really making that jump from something that I was more familiar with into
Right.
something that's totally unknown, right? The corporate world. And like I said, it's a lot easier working with inmates than it is with corporate folks, but I've never regretted my decision. And I think it's one of the probably the biggest risk I have taken in my career, and also something that for me has been most satisfying.
So great to hear that. And one trait you look for in future leaders.
Wow, what trait do I look for in future leaders? I think First and foremost, drive, hunger. Uh, that is something that probably is something that I look for most in future leaders. Like, I used to come from a background where I used to do a lot of assessment and succession at the C-suite level, at the board level, right? Um, and what I learned is that success, a lot of the folks that I have worked with, that I have assessed or coached, the most successful ones are the ones that are the most hungry. When I say hungry, what does that mean? They also know exactly what they want from their career. A lot of us, when we start our career, we don't really know what we want. We take a very tactical
Yeah.
approach. I get promoted here. I get offered by a different organization for this role, good money, maybe an exciting organization. I join them. But a lot of these leaders, the successful ones, from a very early stage of their career, they know what they want. They're very hungry and they plan for their career in a way that is very deliberate. So they take steps to make sure that they get there. If you want to be a CEO in the next 15 years, they make sure they get all the necessary exposure, the commercial exposure, the support function exposure, right? The
Right.
strategy exposure to get there. And they're willing to do whatever it takes, of course, within means, yeah, without breaking the
Right.
rule, hopefully, to get there. So, like I said, hunger is probably the most important trait that I look for in leaders.
Wow, that's beautifully put. One misconception about leadership that you'd like to correct.
A misconception about leadership that I like to correct. Uh, that all leaders are inspirational, are born inspirational, that leaders are born, not made. I think it's a cliche. You keep hearing a lot of that. But that's a misconception because there are people who leadership just doesn't come as naturally for them,
Right.
and yet they are very successful. This is through a lot of hard work, right? People underestimate the hard work that's being put behind the scenes for a lot of successful leaders out there, thinking that some leaders are just born charismatic, they're just born to be good on stage, in front of the convention centers during town halls, for example. So yes, that is a misconception that I think we need to change, especially for aspiring leaders, right? And those people who feel that, I'm not very good at communicating in front of the crowd, I'm not very charismatic, I'm not very inspirational, I may not be a very good people manager today. It is something that can be worked on. If you, as I mentioned earlier, are driven and motivated to do something about it, if
Yeah.
that's your clear aspiration, then get the training, get the necessary coaching, develop yourself. You probably may, it's never a guarantee, of course, but it helps you with getting to your goal if becoming a leader is your goal.
That's really well articulated. Thanks for that. What's one skill you've always wanted to learn but haven't yet?
One skill I wanted to learn but haven't yet. The list is really long. I don't know how long we have. I might have take the entire session just sharing with you the list, yeah?
Maybe just
Uh,
name one. What's on the top of that list?
so one of the lists, I think one of the lists that I would love to learn but haven't really picked up would be, I think, programming actually. It's
Okay.
something I've always been interested in. I just haven't really gotten to it. Not enough time is never an excuse. A lot of people
Right.
say, hey, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that. But I think it's something that I would like to find an opportunity to do and learn.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Although these days they say with generative AI, coding is probably going to be an every person's skill. Everybody is going to be able to do it with very little assistance. So I think you're in a good space there, right? You have a friend in the form of generative AI.
Yeah, but Gen AI, everyone's talking about it. Everyone's saying that it's a shortcut to a lot of things. I don't disagree with that. Yeah, but like any other tool, like you need to understand how to use it to be able to get the best out of it, right? If you
Right.
need to, we use coding an example. You first need to understand what coding does, the point of coding. What's the outcome that you want to get from coding? Gen AI gets you there a lot faster, a lot
Yeah.
easier. But if you don't understand it, you can't really get the full use of it.
Absolutely. So, like they say, a fool with a tool is still a fool. right? So critical thinking of how to use that tool in the most efficient manner, that's critical. So that's really well articulated as well. If you had one extra hour in your day, how would you spend it?
Funny you say this, right, Ajay? Um, if I had one extra hour, okay, I used to joke with my team. Okay, I don't have enough time in the day. I need 9 days in a week, and I need 29 hours in one day. But unfortunately, nothing I do, no amount of wishing and hoping I do can get me there. But if I had one extra hour in a day, I think I'll probably have, I mean, coming from the space of development, right? I'll I might put that time into doing something like picking up coding. Okay, that's an
Yeah,
example. I would also like to um, sharpen my guitar skills. You know, I would like to be able to play the
very cool.
guitar, the solo like Jimi Hendrix.
Right.
That would be really nice if I can get do that. I think sometimes we have a lot of priorities in our day that we don't have the time to do a lot of things. However, just to say something, yes, I don't have enough hours in a day. I'm complaining about it now, but I've been told that I do a lot of revenge procrastination. I think you've heard of this, right? Where you're supposed to sleep at night, but you spend your time scrolling the phone, reading random stuff. If you look at my Google feed, I have a list of different things that don't make sense. They don't fall into a specific category. I just like reading random things. So
Yeah.
while I need the extra time, I also do a little bit of that revenge procrastination, I guess, spending time doing some random readings.
Awesome. Love that. And that was a wonderful rapid fire section, FN. Thanks for being a sport. We shall now move to the more detailed discussion, right? So the first question I have is from TikTok to Singlife. Your roles have spanned startups, MNCs, and government agencies, and so on, which is
Mhm.
very diverse and very rich. What common threads or challenges have you observed in these environments from a talent transformation perspective? Maybe here's where we pick up the prison versus the corporate environment, the differences and the similarities. What was your expectation when you came into corporate, and how did that surprise you?
I think the differences. Look, uh, government working in government today is very different, right? Public sector is very different from when I was there. This was more than 14 years ago. Back then, I think yes, that to a certain extent it may be true. Iron Rice Bowl, right? So you could be in the organization or in a government agency. You stay there for a number of years, you get promoted, right?
Yeah,
You just do what you're supposed to do. You don't have to
yeah,
do a lot more, and you do get promoted. Of course, the ones who put in a lot more effort, a lot more time, do a lot more, deliver better results, they move faster than the others, right? There is always a grading system in any organization. Uh, but I think that difference is a lot less now. However, there is a stark similarity. I do when I was in consulting, right? Work with a lot of government-linked organizations or corporate organizations. Two things, two challenges that a lot of organizations face, whether you're a startup, an MNC, a government agency. It's one, attracting talent.
yeah,
Number two, it is retaining your top talent. When I say talent, I'm talking about top talent here, right?
yeah.
The marketplace is there. Look, when it comes to top talent, really, really strong talent who can deliver um, who can multiply your results, right? Who are high performers. I think these folks are very, very sought after. Case in point, if you're talking about you know, governments have scholarship programs, organizations, corporate organizations have management associate programs. For every single role that is out there, you have many, many people applying for this, right? Because
Right.
they know if they join these programs, their career trajectory goes really fast. And if you're looking for skilled hires who are really good, right? Those people who can come into the organization, plug and play, deliver results immediately, no matter the organization, it's hard to attract them because if they come with a premium, they're very expensive. They are very sought after. So a lot of suitors already
Right.
vying for their services. So that's one, right? What as an organization, what is the interesting or unique value proposition you can offer them,
Right.
in addition to benefits, remuneration, for you to be attracting them. Second thing, you've groomed your talent, right? You know, they're superstars, but when they are really good at what they do, they become known in the marketplace. And what this means is it becomes a lot harder for you to keep them. Why? Because LinkedIn, everyone has a LinkedIn page now.
Right.
How do recruiters hire? They look at LinkedIn, you know, and they look at the profile and they go, hey, you know what? Let's reach out to this guy. They find someone who's really good, who works for your organization, and they're gonna throw uh, a very attractive package with an attractive value proposition. Now, what if sometimes their heads get turned? Yeah. How are you going to keep them? So being able to retain strong talent becomes very challenging, sometimes problematic because if they leave a gap. It's very hard to fill. So yeah, I think it gets a bit challenging like that.
So, in summary, what you're saying is talent acquisition and talent retention are some common elements, irrespective of the environment you're dealing with, be it a startup or MNCs or government agencies. These are important pillars that organizations build their activities around. So that's really well articulated again. So, as a board registered psychologist and an HR leader, how do you integrate psychological principles into creating a more inclusive workplace, especially in a diverse country like Singapore, where you have a mix of different cultures? How do you really integrate principles from psychology?
Uh, Most people have a misconception, yeah, that psychology or psychologists, when you see a psychologist or when you hire a psychologist engage a psychologist in any situation, you're sitting on a chair, lying on a couch, right, talking about your childhood, yeah,
Yeah,
and you try to peel the layers in the
and
onion.
get to your inner child.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
always about the inner child, right? It's always about your childhood. Now, psychology is more than just dealing with mental health issues. Okay, there is psychology is really about understanding the person or understanding people, and I push this a bit further, helping them achieve the best version of themselves, right?
right.
Really is what psychology is about. So in the workplace, when we're looking at how we integrate psychological principles into the workplace, if you take that clinical psychology lens, we're looking at the well-being of
Yeah,
others. And if you want to get the best performance from a person, you need to make sure they're healthy. Sport psychology, performance psychology. If you're not sound psychologically, mentally, you're not sound physically, you're not going to be able to deliver, right? That's one. Now we take the organizational psychology side of things, looking at environments, looking at systems and processes, the bigger ecosystem. That's where the psychology of things come into. What kind of environment encourages efficiency, productivity? It goes down to uh, the space, right? Your working space. You know, some if you look at the Google offices of the world, it's done in a way that it encourages collaboration because of all the
right.
collaborative spaces. No more offices, no more single booths, right? So this is where psychology comes to play in the organizations. Now we look at org psychologists. We come to organizations, look at org design, right? Is your structure going to be supporting the strategy or the objectives that the organization is trying to deliver? So
Right.
all these things play a part in the integration of psychology into the workplace. How do you create a more inclusive workplace? You asked just now in terms of
Yeah.
diversity. Psychologists, right, or psychology relies a lot on data. It relies a lot on research. So what's worked in the research space, psychologists they move into organization and they translate it into real initiatives in a very practical, pragmatic way, right? I mean,
Yeah.
yes, you read those research and you go like that, but you can't do that in real life. Okay, so
Right.
that is the job of psychology in the organizations, to take best practices, gold standards, to bring into organizations, looking at the people, systems, processes, environment to get the best out of people. And of course, everyone here knows that diversity has shown, multiple research has shown that diversity leads to enhanced productivity, top line, bottom line for organizations. So that is what psychology is trying to do in the diversity space. But beyond just diversity, productivity, hiring, workspaces, they call it human factor psychology. So all these things can use or can take the principles of psychology to get things done better.
I love that. So in fact, when we talk about design thinking, right? So to enhance experience of an individual, often to innovate, you say you have to start with the individual, really be human centric, and that's all on the basis of psychology or some breakthrough that you get in terms of human behavior. I love the aspect of the physical space. I think it does produce a different impact when you are in a physical space that's structured in a way that allows for collaboration, open and transparent offices versus offices that exclude people. Obviously, you're setting a tone right there, from the systems to the structure, the policies that you have. Through and through, each decision we make in terms of setting these policies can have an impact on productivity and well-being of people. And in those decisions, definitely psychology does play a role. I think you've articulated that really well. Now, I want to shift gears also to think about the context that we are in right now, which is AI driven. One cannot escape a meeting or a conversation without AI getting mentioned these days. So, with industries making major shifts with advancements in AI, what do you see as the most critical skills organizations need to prioritize to futurize their workplace?
Mhm. Right. Uh, I think all of us, we need to stop looking at critical skills as a set of competencies that is required in a moment in time, right? Just like time is fluid. I think
Yeah.
everyone agrees with me on that. Would you agree with that, Ajay? Time is fluid,
Yes, it is.
and so are critical skills, right? They have to evolve very quickly with the time. Okay, but just like AI, AI will continue to evolve. The more information you put in the AI space,
Right.
they learn. When they learn, they pick up all the learnings, all the and then they produce based on whatever they've learned, right? That's what generative AI is all about. Now,
Right.
the one skill that I think is really critical, if I was hard pressed, if you're forcing me to say this, I would say learning agility.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I think. Now, what exactly is learning agility? It is how you adopt and how you adapt your knowledge from whatever you learned in the past. Yeah, whether it's
Yeah.
previous job, previous role in university, your experiences that you've had from past projects, from different workplaces. And then you take all those learning, you adopt and you adapt it to a very novel situation, a situation
Right.
maybe even not familiar with. So that for me is a critical skill that you need to have to be able to be to go with the progression of how things change so quickly. And just like generative AI, which changes and evolves same as us, right? Learning agility is that skill, that catalyst that allows you to evolve and better make use of technology like Gen AI.
I love that again. So there is a classic quote by Deming who says that evolution is. Sorry, I'm messing this up. I forget the quote now, so I'm going to pause and come back again.
That's all right.
From your experience, what are some key components of a successful personalized L&D strategy? Can you share an example where this approach yielded significant results? The reason I'm asking is in the consumer space, when we pull out our phone to order food or hail a cab, we get a personalized experience. On Amazon, you go or your favorite shopping destination, everything is personalized for us. But in
Mm.
a corporate environment, we tend to get more of one size fit all kind of an experience, right?
Yeah.
So, what is the role of personalization in learning and development?
One size fits all doesn't work anymore. Like you shared, right? Everything in your phone is tailored to you. If you look at TikTok, yeah, if all of us here, if you have a TikTok app, I have a TikTok app,
it's going to look different because it's tailored to your preferences, your viewing preferences, right? And same thing with L&D. Yeah. Uh, L&D, folks who do L&D maybe may get offended if I say this, right? But L&D is more a function that provides the bigger high level strategy and tools that enable learning, that enable development, right? It's imagine this, L&D is like going to IKEA. You got so
Yeah.
many different things. Yeah, you got so many different programs. IKEA has so many different furniture, different prices, different themes. If you don't know what you want your room or your house or your office to look like, you don't really know what to buy, and then you end up buying a lot of random things. You'd have wasted your money, you'd have wasted your time into IKEA, and you still need to buy some more
Right.
things. Yeah, that is what personalized L&D is. You first, I think L&D needs to go into organizations to create a mechanism where individuals are able to identify what's most important for them, what their aspirations are, what do they
Yeah.
want to achieve, short term, mid term, long term, because then it allows the individual to create. Lots of organizations have individual development planning tools, yeah, especially the more mature one where L&D has really matured within the organization. And you realize the power in this because as an individual, I look at my IDP for short, I know my aspiration, and then I start looking at, okay, to achieve that, if I want to be the CFO of an organization and I am starting off as a first year analyst in finance, yeah, I'm just going, what experiences do I need? Okay, what kind of exposure, skills, capabilities do I need? Then it allows me to go into the L&D space, right? To speak to my L&D partners, the L&D function to go, hey, you know what? I would like to get a better understanding. So I work for Singlife, right? An insurance organization where we look at financials differently. We look at things like VNB, APE, all these things, right? So how do I learn that? It becomes customized, right? Of course, L&D need to have all the tools. It's like a bit of
Yeah.
like IKEA, you need to have everything there. Now, cost becomes a factor. What's the best way to learn? Different people learn different way. You have your just-in-time learning, your e-learning platforms, your
Right.
Coursera's, your Skillsofts, your LinkedIn learnings, all these things. And then you also have your in-class sessions, you have your programs, right? Run these sessions, make it available to employees based on resources, based on what you can afford as an organization you've budgeted for, and based on the priorities of the organization. For the individual, it allows them to then, based on my individual development plan, what's most important for me? What can I pick to fit or to allow me to achieve my goals? And I think
Right.
that's how L&D should progress in terms of their strategy, not one size fits all. You have your store, you have your library, your shelf of all the different tools that you can offer, but you allow the individuals to pick what is best for them. Okay. I think this is what would work. It's similar to your personalized applications that you mentioned earlier, RJ.
Right, right. Yeah, totally agree with that. So even when we work with organizations at KNOLSKAPE, we have a large library of simulations and other experiential learning tools. So that's like the IKEA store, or we tend to think in terms of a Lego box. We've got all the building blocks, right? What do you want to build now, right? And so we are able to help people build what they want to build using these building blocks. So that's a metaphor we often think about.
I love that metaphor, so I'm gonna steal that in the future,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for
So,
sure.
yeah, RJ, so thanks for sharing that.
Sure. So Knowlescape's global L&D survey of 2025 has found that the NPS on perceived importance of data and analytics in L&D is 56, while the NPS on the happiness with the current usage of data and analytics in the L&D decision-making process is minus 53.
Mhm.
What do you make of this trend? How can organizations effectively use tools like data analytics, and AI is offering a lot of opportunities today as well? How do organizations use these tools to deliver personalized learning experiences at scale? Any examples you can think of where maybe data analytics helped us figure out the differences in what people may probably need and curate different journeys for different individuals?
I have a question for you, right, Ajay? Asking you back something. Now, is eating healthy and exercising important to you?
Yeah, both are important.
Both important to you, right? Now, would you say that you are very good with exercising, looking at your diet, lots of greens, lots of fruits, less of the stuff, that tastes good but not actually good for your waistline?
Yeah, I think I'm doing better these days with my exercising than my diet, but I see where you're going with this. Yes.
You're a lot better than most people. Like most people, right? We all know the importance of eating healthy, exercising to feel good, look good,
Right.
right? But how many of us are actually happy with our health, our fitness, how we look,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's the same as what you've mentioned, right? A lot of people know it's important. That the data analytics is important in L&D, but when it comes to the use of it, the NPS score is a lot lower. I think what you mentioned
Yeah.
is almost like 100 difference between knowing
Yeah.
the importance versus the happiness of use.
Yeah.
That right. Um, so how can organizations efficiently use data analytics and AI to deliver personalized experience? I think even before we move into that space, like I said earlier, right, drive motivation is important. Motivation first becomes key. If you can get people motivated to want to work on their health, to eat better, they will do what's necessary. They will go to the gym, sign up with the gym, they will sign up a diet plan, right? Same thing for data analytics. If they're motivated and they know the importance of AI and data to get to the outcome that they desire, they will do whatever it takes to learn to use analytics, to better leverage analytics and data to get to their outcome. So in terms of examples where analytics were used to get to a personalized outcome, there are a lot of and there are programs out there that really help with this. Now, we're short of time, right? And I think when you understand what your outcome is, when you know exactly what kind of personalized learning, what kind of outcome you want to achieve through learning, this is when you can use data and AI, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's through ChatGPT, KNOLSKAPE will have a lot of different um, learnings, modes of learning, content, right, that
Yeah.
people can use. Now, it is when they know what the outcome is, they put the parameters out there, they show the kind of program they're interested in, the preferences, so whether it's online, offline, uh, how long it is, right? Put that all the parameters into your Gen AIs. It comes up with a lot of different things, which is more targeted towards the
Right.
personalized learning. So I think this is how people can leverage it. But inherently, if you don't, as L&D folks or as organizations, if you don't share with your employees the importance of development to be able to, one, deliver better results, two, to remain relevant, then
Yeah.
the employees won't do anything. I mean, they don't feel the need to do that. Second thing, give them that tool, right? The data, the analytics that showcases the importance of the reinforces the message through using evidence. Then it sort of lights a fire in their,
Right.
pardon my French, yeah, to want to do it. So they'll go into your platforms, right, to get what's important. They'll sign up for sessions. They'll attend workshops because they know the data has backed it up that if I do this, I will be able to get to the outcome that I'm going for.
I love that. I'm starting to see a thread in what you're saying, right? You're starting off with drive and motivation being the most important aspect. If we are able to motivate people, or if it comes intrinsically to people that I need to transform, change, and be ready for this, then that's a great starting point to have, right? And the other thing that you're also saying is knowing is not doing. The fact that I know something is good doesn't mean that I'll end up doing it. So there are nudges that we need to create. Everybody knows, working out is good, but how many of us are able to stay on track. In our experience, gamification has been a big reinforcing factor, right? How to keep people on track for things that they should be doing, things that are good for them. But oftentimes we lose motivation along the way and fall off the track. So we've found gamification to be a great way to help people stay on track. But I love what you're saying in terms of the drive and motivational aspect, how to bridge the gap between knowing and doing, and also the fact about lighting the fire by giving people the tools. There are 2 points of view that I've come across, right? Very interesting ones. I often find people saying to be able to transform people, start with a mindset.
Mhm.
That's one way of doing it. The other is don't bother doing anything with the mindset. Let's start with the tools. Give people the right tools. And there is a popular TED video where they installed a computer in a wall in a remote village in India. And it was astonishing for scientists to see how kids picked up how to use the computer without any instruction. So that's a mindset shift. Without any instruction, just tools doing the job. So the starting point could be interesting. Either we start with the mindset, work our way towards the
Mhm.
tool set, or provide people the tool set, the data, and everything, and watch them, learn and transform by themselves. So that's interesting. And Microsoft's recent work trend index states 85% of employees feel hybrid and remote work models require innovative ways to maintain meaningful human connections. I think we intuitively get that number. Can you share any examples with us where leadership development programs emphasized empathy, emotional intelligence, and human connection as part of the overarching skill building?
Right, right. Um, it depends on firstly, what is the leadership development program targeted at, right? Are we looking to build high performing leadership teams, which means a bit of a teaming element there, working together
Right.
effectively, right? Or is it an upskilling, working on a singular leader to provide them with certain skills, enhance certain capabilities, competencies, knowledge, right?
Yeah.
That's it. So now you did ask, right? Any examples where leadership development programs emphasize empathy, emotional intelligence, and human connection? Okay, this the three elements you mentioned: empathy, emotional intelligence, human connection. It is something. Okay, I was in leadership development right when I was in consulting. Worked a lot with senior leaders, top teams. Yeah, in organization, whether it's in Singapore, right, your TPs, domestic portfolio companies, or other different organizations, MNCs, yeah, all across the world. And I've done this not just in Singapore. I've done top team work in Australia. I've done top team work in Thailand. I've done top team work in Europe, or even in the US, right? But any leadership development program where you're working on the top team specifically, we're talking about the senior leadership team, GMC, some people call it, right? You need that element of empathy, emotional intelligence, and human connection because you are working with very, very senior experience, and I would assume people who are very good at the job, because when you get to that C-suite level, you have to have had a track record of a lot
Yeah.
of success and great results. But how do we put different people who have shown track record of success together to be working effectively? This is
Yeah.
the empathy, emotional intelligence, and human connection really, really come into play because it's no longer about building capabilities. It is about how do we create that rapport, that teaming, that teamness to connect, right? You use the term human connection, right? You need to build that human connection because for the team to be successful and to move really quickly, they need to be able to not work in silos. They need to be able, and how do you do this? You get them to connect with one another. You build partnerships, relationships, because this allows for effective collaboration. Yes, they're responsible for their own vertical, their own business, their own departments, but when you are at that level, yeah, you're in the C level, it is an enterprise mindset. How is it that I can drive whatever I'm doing, be successful as head of HR, but also deliver value at the enterprise level. I need to understand the different people in my team. What are their needs? What can I do to enable their success? How do I contribute to the bigger success? So the only way for this is when you build that connection, I feel connected to you. A lot of programs as such, when I ran it in the past, I've worked with, I've also engaged external facilitators or consulting houses, training houses to be working on this. I make sure I look for programs that allow for the building of authentic relationships with one another. And authentic relationship has empathy, it has emotional intelligence, putting yourself in other people's shoes, and then understand why they do what they do. Human connection brings you together, so you go together as a team, no longer as individuals. So that's my example for a program or a leadership development program that emphasizes on the empathy bit, the emotional intelligence bit, as well as the human connection bit.
Awesome. And as you were answering this question, the one thought that crossed my head is how we could all learn from the area of sports, right? So where there are individual superstars and they are superstars and hence they are in a team, but ultimately that is not sufficient to win a tournament or even to win a match. They have to come together as a team, and what really helps them bond is really empathy, emotional intelligence, and human connection. So there's so much that we can learn from how coaches. These days, I'm following. English Premier League, thanks to my son supporting Manchester City. Right, they've not had a good season so far, but when I'm tracking the performance match to match, I realize that at that level, everybody is a cut above the rest. But what really matters is how do they perform as a team, as a group, right? And so your answer really resonated with me. Now I
I
want
did.
to,
You've
yeah,
touched a bit of a sore point there, right? Manchester is close to my heart, so and Manchester City not performing well, yeah, that's a bit of a pain point for me. But like you rightly said, right? You've got Erling Haaland, you have who else have you got there? You've got Kevin De Bruyne,
Gordon,
all the
yeah,
superstars in there. They're very good already. And it's
yeah,
about what do you do to get them together? Maybe that the human connection that if I look at you. I'm so connected to you. I know where you'll be going because I know you so well, right? I'm your De Bruyne. I know where Haaland's gonna run. I kick the ball there because that's what
right,
I can already predict what he wants to do. And you can only do that if you have that connection, if you're really that close together, that
right.
sense of teamness is really strong.
Right. And it's not about who's going to score that goal. The team needs to win. So they can't be selfish motives, right? If you are doing an assist, then that's your role, right?
Yeah.
To help the team win, right? So that's beautiful. So,
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
yeah,
So I can have for example, you can have the most successful audit team or HR team, right? But if you don't really care for what's going on in the enterprise, you don't look
right,
at beyond your function, your company ceases to exist, right? Because maybe you're not supporting them in terms of business, getting and enabling the rest of the business. So there is no point being amazing at your function and what you do as
yeah.
a C-suite leader without taking that enterprise mindset, because then the organization ceases to exist because the performance isn't there.
Yes, true that, true that. Totally aligned with that. So, what advice would you give to HR and L&D leaders, given your experience in Australia, Thailand, and a few places around the APAC region? What are you seeing as a trend right now, given what's happening with AI and mental health and well-being kind of issues that are becoming very pertinent, and personalization, which we spoke about at length in this conversation? What are some trends that you're seeing, and what's the general advice you would give to an aspiring leader today in the L&D and HR space?
Right. Um, Look, I think for colleagues in the L&D space, right, L&D has evolved from what it was before. It used to be, L&D used to be just running trainings. Yeah, you run effective communication skills training, you run and whatever that is required by the different departments that request things of you. It doesn't work anymore. Yeah. L&D folks out there, my encouragement for you is you need to move out of that traditional mindset of L&D equals to trainings and workshops. Yeah, because to be effective in L&D today, to be effective in HR today, HR needs to understand L&D. Yeah,
Yeah,
HR needs to understand L&D. You need to understand all different facets of business, which means if I keep it to the HR space first, to be effective, you need to understand talent management, because talent management looks at succession planning, identification of high potential talents, critical talents in the organization. You need to understand org development, right? Org design, how organizations are being structured. You need to understand comp and ben, right? How is talent being paid? Now, you expand that even further. You need to understand the wider business. You need to understand P&L. You need to understand how products are being costed. You need to understand how business strategy is being done. Only then you'll be able to add value to the organization, because L&D is an enabler. If you understand what's going on in the business, in the organization, you understand all the other parts of HR, it allows you to develop your L&D strategy in a way that it leads to the success of the bigger HR department as well as the bigger, wider enterprise, the wider organization. So stop being just focused on, looking at trainings, workshops. Step back, the bigger picture. It allows you to be more targeted. Especially, I know for a fact that a lot of organizations are not spending a lot of money on trainings, L&D anymore, right? You look at systems, you look at online learning, just-in-time learning, right? All this, many different tools that are out there. When you understand what the priorities of business are, it allows you to take a targeted approach. So you're spending your investment in the right places that is needed for the employees to achieve success in their roles, which means that leads to the bigger organizational success.
Awesome. I love that, because what you're saying here is take a system level view. Don't just get pigeonholed into your function and you have a narrow view of the world. So, what you're recommending is widen your scope. Really think about the larger impact of the work you're doing. That'll give you clarity on what the right next steps are. I really love that. And I do see it's quite lacking in many professionals out there who tend to just focus on the here and now and what's right in front of them. Cool. So I have just one more question given the paucity of time, FN. So what's that one thing you've learned or tried to learn in the last year, in 2024? I know guitar, I'm sensing could be one of them. But is there anything else that you've tried to learn in the last year?
What I've tried to learn is, okay, I love steak, right? I love eating steak. So in the last 1 year, I've learned to cook steak, or to perfect the art of cooking steak. And how is this relevant to our conversation today, right? It's requires me, I know what I want to achieve. I know the doneness. I've had the best steaks in like your top steakhouses out there. I try to replicate that at home. How do I do that? A lot of research, a lot of trial and error. I've tried different methods for cooking. I think the reverse sear, where you put the steak in the oven first and then you sear it on a cast iron pan. I've tried sous videing steak to get the best thing, basting the steak with butter at the end. But how do I get to know this? It's through research. I've actually used AI, right, to provide me with the best solutions to get steak. I've also tried to look at online videos where they teach you how to make to make the best steak. But right, there are many ways to get to that perfect steak that I'm aiming for, right? It's just, if I really want it, I'll go about doing what I need to. I'll go about try, test, fail. I've got really bad experiences. The charred. It looks like a piece of charred wood when I made it. But you learn from it, and that's what I've been learning. And I think today, not to the extent of your top steakhouses in the world. I don't have the 1,000 degree iron at home, whatever, but pretty decent steak, I think, that could impress people when they come. I mean, it's not everyone enjoys it, but that's what I've learned over the past 1 year, and I think I've done it to gotten a pretty good at it.
Folks, watch out. You might soon see Effin in the Singapore version of Master Chef. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. And I really like how you connected that back to learning, right? Because you had the motivation back to the core principles that you laid out for us in today's session. Start with your motivation and the drive. You had a desire to get this right, and then you went about doing your research, right? And you took the help of online sources. Probably you spoke to a few people, and then the spirit of experimentation. You never get anything right the first time around. The willingness to fail and adapt, those things you spoke about in today's conversation as well, till you are able to reach a state where you're saying, yeah, I'm ready now, right? That's confidence. It all started off with some level of clarity that I want to get this done, and you are in a state of confidence right now. So that's really awesome. And I wish we had more time for this conversation, but we have to wrap this up now. Thank you so much, Effin, for this lovely chat and the insights and the experiences that you've shared and the metaphors you've used. Really will stick with our audience for a pretty long time. And I'm sure the viewers and listeners will find great value and learning from this episode. Thanks to all our viewers and listeners for tuning into the learning curve. We shall be back with the next episode with another great personality and insights on making organizations, leaders, and the workforce ready for the future. Until next time, take care and goodbye.